It's Tuesday, the 10th of May, 2016. I am Robin Yellow, and this is Techtasm, episode 14, the Arse Technica review show. And with me, and he's a happy man, is James Woodall.
Mr. Yellow, have you been enjoying Hitman by any chance?
I haven't. I cannot do it. I can't kill anyone. I think it's the pacifist in me, which means that I just, when it comes to it, I can't do it. And you've even told me how to kill this blokey in Paris, and I still can't do it.
At least you're admitting it. That's fine.
Yeah, what's worrying is how incredibly good you are at it.
Well, I'm just that good.
That's psychotic. Well, dear listener, this week James and I are going to be looking at what we can expect from Google I.O. next week. Oracle is back in court again in the next chapter in the Boaty McBoatFace saga, and we'll be judging all of these stories and some more to determine if they are Techtasms, which is a blend of tech for technology and tasm for phantasm, something that exists only in a person's mind. So without further intro, let's get on with that first article. Ron Amadio in Arse Technica reported this week that Google I.O., of course, is previewing for next week. And I wanted James to actually go through some of his predictions from Arse Technica, this Arse Technica article.
Okay.
Now, while we don't actually know what they're going to talk about, the schedule has been published, and it will give us a sort of a rough idea of what to expect. But since Google likes to avoid spoiling its announcements, the schedule isn't always a comprehensive list until the opening day keynote. Now, I'm going to talk about a few things which are in there, which we know, the stuff that we know, and I want to hear what you think, James, about them. First of all, I want to talk about the Android N developer preview. Now, we know Android N is coming. We think it'll probably be released in quarter 3 because that's normally what happened. And we know that HTC have got a Nexus device in the works. Are you looking forward? Are you excited for Android N?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That's it, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Basically, I mean, ask me the same question when WWDC comes around.
Okay, fair enough.
No, hey, look, it's exciting for Android developers everywhere. I mean, I'll be honest, maybe because I'm out the loop, I couldn't tell you the big difference between L and N, or let alone what happened in M.
L and M?
Yeah, L going to N. I don't even know what happened in M. I mean, I'm sure you told me, but maybe I wasn't listening.
Well, okay. So I can't remember that right now. But what I can tell you is that N, for Nutella probably, has got what's called a floating window mode. Now, this feature is hidden and it's unfinished in the current Android N developer preview. But Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch, Business Insider, and Recode have all independently determined that Chrome and Android are going to merge, and one of the things that will allow that to happen is the ability of Android to have floating windows, to effectively have a windowing desktop, a bit like, well, Windows and Mac OS X. Now, if Android N is going to become a desktop operating system, what does that mean for the mobile app? Does that mean they're going to abandon that audience and move to desktop, or what, James?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, Microsoft, of course, have done the same thing with Windows 10. You know, their universal Windows platform, code running on Xbox, phone, tablet, PC, servers, you know, you name it, brilliant. It would make sense for Google to do the same thing because, I mean, managing multiple operating systems is hard. So it would make a lot more sense, and especially because tablets and laptops are converging. I can see that the floating windows is definitely the missing piece in the puzzle. And of course, we've spoken about those kind of hybrid Android operating systems that have tried to do the same thing already. So, hey, it makes a lot of sense. Bring it on.
Well, Google want to reduce the number of operating systems that they have to maintain, and this is one way of doing it. The worry, I suppose, is that Windows, while it's still great on a desktop, perhaps not so good on mobiles and tablets, and or it hasn't been a massive success, hasn't made any
It might not be a massive success, but I don't think that's down to the quality of the operating system. I think Microsoft's implementation of cross-platform code is stellar, and nobody comes even close to that, especially with things like the purchase of Xamarin, as we discussed. So I would disagree with you there. Mr.
Well,
Yellow?
talking about Chrome OS and Android merging, or Chrome OS turning into Android, let's have a look the other way around. One of the things that they're possibly going to be talking about at I/O next week is that the Google Play Store will be brought to Chrome OS as a Chrome extension via Google's App Runtime for Chrome, or ARC project. Now, this is from code inside Chrome OS, one of the developer versions of Chrome OS recently. When you booted it up, a kind of interstitial splash screen came up saying, do you want to install the Google Play Store? So everybody immediately interpreted this as Android apps coming in force to the Chrome OS platform, which actually lends credence to Chrome OS having perhaps a longer life than we at first thought.
I think what this really says is we don't really know what's going to happen because, look, it can't be both, right? Although saying that, stay tuned, listener, in 2 weeks' time for us to eat respective hats. But I think it's more likely that Chrome OS is going to die and become Android. Purely because...
By the way, listener, for the record, this show is recorded on Chrome OS. One thing that Google, of course, James, is not tremendously good at is instant messaging. Now, Snapchat and Facebook's WhatsApp are both valued at $16 billion each, which is nothing compared to China's instant messaging app, WeChat, which is valued at a whopping $83 billion. Now, Google's only IM product is Hangouts. Some say a neglected, barely developed product that's earned a bad reputation, especially with Android users. Mm-hmm. But the Wall Street Journal has reported that Google is planning a new, smarter messaging app that presumably would supersede Hangouts. You excited for that? Or you just had your fill of IM?
Why don't they just buy one? I mean,
That's not their thing, though, is it, to buy things?
Well, they bought Android.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. All right, they don't buy many of them.
Well, okay, I mean, Google makes...
And which one would they buy? Line?
Snapchat. Why can't they buy Snapchat?
Yes, because Snapchat famously don't want to sell to anybody. They've been approached many times by different companies and have never shown any interest.
Right. Yes, they did turn down, was it 3 or 4 billion? But if they're valued at 16, I mean, Google have got the money, right? So...
Well, they have. Well, remember, Google is the cash-generating machine of the world's largest company, Alphabet. So, as you said, they've got the money. Now, SlashGear says that Google is planning to revamp its visual search offering by integrating it directly into the Google camera. Now, this is the default app that appears on Nexus devices and is an option on any Android device. And they are saying that it would be able to snap a picture, you trace around an item you want more information on, and Google would be able to interpret the results. Now, if you use Google Photo, are you a Google Photos user, James?
No, I use my iPhone.
Well, yes, exactly. But you can still put Google Photos onto your iPhone. It's all backed up into their cloud, unlimited number of photos.
I'm happy with the Apple Cloud thing.
Of course you are. But one of the things that you can do in Google Photos is you can search. So if you want pictures of cars, you search for cars, and it shows you all the pictures in your photo collection which have got cars in them. Now, that can be quite useful, actually. I used it the other day to find an image from a long, long time ago, which I searched for, and it completely failed to identify it. But it had a bloody good go.
What a great advert, you know. People should rush out now and use this feature.
But they're trying to do something more intelligent rather than just being somewhere where stuff is left in a big pile. They're trying to introduce some intelligence into it. And talking of intelligence, the show is I/O is scheduled to contain lots of virtual reality stuff. Now, it just seems obvious to me that they should be getting into this space. Yeah. They already have Cardboard, of course. Have you used Cardboard, James?
I have actually. Yes, I have.
What do you think?
I think you have to remember that it's a piece of cardboard. It's no Oculus Rift, but yeah, it's a pretty good go at it, I think.
Yeah, I've used the Samsung Gear VR, which is Android, but it's with Samsung's own hardware. So it's $100, I think, rather than $5 for the actual apparatus. But that is extremely good for $100. Yeah. Now, several reports say that Google is building a more substantial lineup of VR hardware, and the rumor is that they'll be both a standalone headset and a smartphone-powered Gear VR competitor. And apparently they're also working on a VR interface for Android itself. And Android N preview code has shown some VR hooks in the latest developer version. What do you think they could be working on here?
Sounds like they're doing too much. But this reminds me a little bit of Microsoft way back when they kind of tried to do everything. Okay.
Tango is another thing that they're working on. Now, this is, if you remember, the 3D sensing camera on the back of a tablet, which allowed you to do augmented reality gaming. So it could detect the space that it was in and make sense through the camera of what it was looking at. And a lot of this was powered by something called a Movidius chip. And this chip actually allowed you, with just a single image sensor, to make sense of the 3D world around you by doing, I think it looks for points. It looks for angles, edges, lines, corners, that sort of thing. And then as the camera moves, the accelerometer moves in 3D space, it looks for difference in aspect. So it doesn't use stereoscopy or structured light or anything clever. That literally is just a camera sensor. Now, there is a Project Tango developer kit for sale, but Lenovo is building the first ever consumer device. What it's going to be used for, I've got no idea. What would you use it for, James?
3D camera. We use them at work for detecting faults with aircraft. Does that count? I don't.
Well, yeah, that's true, actually, yeah. So there may be some industrial applications, but again, that's not really Google space, is it, industrial?
No. Absolutely no. In fact, they try very hard not to be. It's nice to see companies doing R&D. I mean, let's remember back in the 70s, no one knew what a mouse was for. So I guess
eating. It's good eating. Yeah. Oh no, that's chocolate mice. But well, look, James, you mentioned the Amazon Echo. Sorry, there's so much to get through here. I'm going to move quickly now. The Amazon Echo. OK Google in a box.
Yes. Okay,
a Google Voice appliance that will tie it into the Google ecosystem, which is much deeper and broader than the Echo ecosystem, which can order you a pizza and tell a bad joke. But the Google version, of course, could have the entire Android and web ecosystem to plug into. Good idea?
Definitely. Hey, it's a space that Amazon have proved exists, so sure, it makes perfect sense for Google to go there as well. Why not?
Why not? Now, if I were to say to you Brillo, Thread, and Weave, would you know what they meant?
I know that they're in front of me on the article now, but no, I don't.
You could have got away with that. I was teeing you up there, James. Well, look, Brillo is an operating system for Internet of Things. All right, it's just a stripped down version of Android. Thread is a mesh network where devices can talk to each other instead of using Wi-Fi, which is quite power hungry. And Weave is a secure communications protocol for smart home devices, whatever the heck that means. Now, whether we see anything more about smart homes, I don't know. It's one of those kind of themes which has everyone got very excited about it, and then it's kind of faded a little bit, I think, hasn't it, James?
I first worked on smart home back in 2007, and the technology that's been described here, the Brillo, the Thread, and the Weave, they all existed in 2007. I mean, it says here that Thread is based on Zigbee. What's wrong with Zigbee?
Well, there's nothing wrong with Zigbee. Zigbee is a good example of something which was an open standard. But what we found recently, I have the only smart home devices, as we've talked about in this show before, that we've got are plugs and lights. They're all proprietary. They don't interoperate with other things. I think Brillo, Thread, and Weave is an attempt by Google to say, well, look, actually, IoT industry, if you all used a common OS and these common systems, then all your products could interoperate. But right now, I think the manufacturers of the products for the smart home want to maintain their kind of proprietary advantage rather than going open.
Yeah, true. And interestingly, Apple with their HomeKit is kind of it's half proprietary, half not. I think you have to be part of the Apple certified ecosystem, but at least they are opening it up. So, hey, I guess we'll see. The world is moving in that direction. A smart home makes a lot of sense. So. Can
I just put one in the knife into Apple on this? They have got a very poor history of using open standards and creating ecosystems. Their Bluetooth speakers and headphones had to be certified as Apple compliant, otherwise they wouldn't work. So they weren't really Bluetooth speakers. The fact that they used Bluetooth was secondary. They were proprietary. You had to pay your tax to Apple to have compatible with Apple written on it, whereas everybody else just used the standard. I think Apple have got a very, very poor track record of doing anything open at all.
That's not my experience on the Bluetooth side. I'm pretty sure their Bluetooth stack for audio is open. But yes, if you want to do anything Bluetooth over the serial port, you have to get the Apple chip. And I can tell you from experience twice as a firmware developer, it is a nightmare.
Well, there you go. Now, can you remember, James, what ATAP stands for?
ATAP. I want to say audio something.
Let me put you out of your misery. The Advanced Technology and Projects Division. Now, this is still part of Google. Hasn't been spun out like X, which has got those moonshot projects we talked about last week. And some of the projects perhaps that they'll be talking about at I.O. finally would include Ara, the modular smartphone, Solly, the radar chip that can detect hand gestures made above a screen, and Jacquard, which weaves invisible touch panels into textile using thin metallic thread. So possibly we'll see some updates to that, but it's all speculation. That's been a total speculation tasm there, James. Now, those guesses that we've just made and those insights from Ron Amadio, some of them based on fact, some of them based on rumour.
I think that some of them are Techtasms and some of them are reals, but as for which ones, I've got no idea.
Let's not go back over the list now. We're all looking forward to Google I.O. and we'll have a report for you, possibly not next week because it'll be in progress, possibly the week after on Google I.O.
So let's stick with Google, and we've got the upcoming £6 billion Oracle versus Google showdown. Now, my favourite website, Arse Technica, again, this is definitely the Arse Technica review show by Joe Mullin, has written that the jury is now being picked for this trial, and this is all to do with Oracle stating claim over parts of Java which Google uses inside Android, and we're only talking about 37 Java APIs, of which there are thousands of APIs inside Android. But hey, it's big enough to go to trial, and £6 billion is a pretty big price tag to put on this. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you remember, Robin, back in 2012, the US District Judge William Alsop ruled that the APIs can't in fact be copyrighted, which of course we then thought, okay, that's fine, this is over. But then that was then overruled by the US Court of Appeals. So, I mean, what is going on here?
Well, I think, as we've said before on this show, I think Oracle are one of those companies that now are just into suing people to make money, protecting patents. They're little more than patent trolls. I wish you may get some negative feedback on that. But, I'm not seeing the innovation in Oracle anymore. And this is, these gigantic numbers they're going after Google for. But the bottom line is, especially in America, where it's very litigious, if you broke a law and a judge said it's a law which stands, then you've got to pay up. Whether it's going to be the £6 billion or not, I don't know. I suspect it won't be, but certainly there's going to be some consideration out of this, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. There has to be. I mean, that's if, of course, Oracle win. I mean, £6 billion is just a made-up number, right? I mean, how does anybody know, as you say, what this means? The interesting thing about Android, though, is this is not the first company to sue Google over Android. I mean, we've discussed in the past that Microsoft make more money from Android than they do from their own operating system.
They do, that's right, yeah, for patents that are used.
The same tactics. I don't think the Microsoft one ever went to court, but the threat certainly was there to make the manufacturers agree not. But then on the other side, if you remember that Apple have sued Samsung for various things going the other way. So Apple famously decided that they'd patented swipe to unlock, which to me sounds completely ridiculous. But hey, they did it. They've got it. They own the patent. So hey, let's...
Well, what's interesting about tech cases like this is that often the jury and the judge and even some of the lawyers are not familiar with the technical aspects of what's being discussed in the trial. I know you get the same in this with complex fraud trials, which can last for years, and people just, but there is no other way. This system of juries and judges, this is the way we do business in the West. And unfortunately, the uninitiated they're going to have to tell a human story, and the judge is going to have to guide the jury on voting with their heads and their hearts in equal measure. And I think the story is here, Oracle created something. They didn't. Actually, they bought it from Sun Microsystems, but Oracle owned something which the Supreme, was it the Supreme Court or some higher court had said that APIs are enforceable because they are an artistic endeavor or they're a creative endeavor, and therefore as a creative endeavor can be copyrighted. Let's just be clear about what an API is. It's a programming interface. It's something that no normal person that would serve on a jury in the United States would come across unless you had a programming background. You would even know what they are. You would certainly never see one. So it's something that's hidden underneath the bonnet of the car, if you will. And yet, I think the danger when you've got these special technical topics is that the tech community throws its hands up into the air and sort of is shocked by the whole thing, and everyone else kind of shrugs and says, well, who cares? I don't even know what they're talking about anyway. And it just means that Google were going to have to pass some money to Oracle, who'll have a bit more money to sue somebody else in the future. Yeah,
I think, okay, and as a techie and as a developer, this worries me because it just makes you think that if you're a small guy and you want to release some software, you don't want some big bad Oracle type company coming along going, oh, we invented this 20 years ago. There's people that claim, I remember a while back, there was somebody had the patent for how you download things from the internet, and they were going after small app developers because they were getting their software from the App Store. They were never going to successfully sue Apple, so why not go after the developers? It was just, this stuff worries me because it sets a precedent.
If they win, and as you said, it sets that precedent, it will be at the end of hundreds and hundreds of startups who will be dependent on using somebody else's API for something or reverse engineering something or other, totally legitimately as far as they see it, to actually get themselves off the ground. They'll have to, reuse will be too costly. And a lot of these startups won't have the money to be able to do anything clever. So we're left in the hands of big companies that can afford to fight these lawsuits. It's actually insidious.
Yeah, I'm not too impressed. So I guess the question is, and this is a very serious question for our listener, is patent law in the world of tech a Techtasm or a real? Will it really become a problem, or will it go away?
Well, it's really horrible. We're talking about the United States here. We're not talking about the UK. But it is really horrible. And the question is, does it drive innovation? Does it drive business, the pursuit, the enhancement of products and services that make your life better? Does it drive companies that do this sort of thing out of business? Or is it absolutely fair? You use somebody else's stuff, you got to pay up, whether it should be £6 billion or not. I honestly don't know. This is why it's ended up in court, because it's not obvious what the answer is. If it was obvious that Google should pay Oracle money, then they would just pay them to go away. They go, you've got us paying to rights, we'll pay up, which is exactly what happened with Microsoft and Android. Microsoft had the patents, no point in even going to court. We'll pay up. We're Samsung, we're HTC, we sell a load of phones. By selling Android, we are infringing your copyright. Google got out of it because they give Android away for free.
Yes.
That's how they got around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're bang to rights, you pay up. The reason why is because this one's on a knife edge, and that's why it has to go to court again. So we'll be following this one closely, I think, in the months to come.
And just as a quick kind of sign-off, very, very quick, I did watch a documentary last weekend about 3D printers where the same question came up. And so I recommend you watch it. I can't remember it, but it's about 3D printers. I'll send you a message afterwards. where these tiny little companies like MakerBot and so forth are producing all these little 3D printers. And
well, maybe you could put that into the Facebook channel.
I will put that into the Facebook channel. But basically, these companies were getting popular, and then the big boys sued them for, copyright and patent infringement. It's a problem. I'm rambling. Let's stop this. My head hurts. Let's
move on. Let's jump into a cab. And from next week, you'll be able to take a Carhoo taxi app. Taxi. As Carhoo, that's Karhoo, launches in London. Now, Carhoo is a cab booking app that's launched this week. Was it this week or last week? I'm trying to find the detail there. But it claims to offer more available cars than any other rival on the streets of London. Now, Carhoo is joining an increasingly congested corner of the App Store alongside Cabby, Mini Cabster, Cab Guru, etc., and this new startup is attempting to one-up its competitors by offering more cars and a pricing system that, according to its creators, is more transparent. Now, it's going to be launching with 30,000 cabs in its fleet, and this is 3 times more than its nearest competitor. And the way that it's done this is that it's struck deals with large operators, including ComCab and Addison Lee. Now, the experience is, as you would expect if you've used Uber or Lyft or any of those services. You request a cab, you put your destination in, and you're given nearby cars with a price, estimated time of arrival, and who the operator is. And you can filter by price, nearest car, type of car, preferred company. But the crucial thing is there will not be any surge pricing. And also, they focus rather than the integration, they're looking at the integration of fleets rather than driver by driver. So they're not looking to play the same game as Lyft and Uber. They're actually looking to optimize it for fleets of existing cars. So actually, it could be a nice fill-in for where Lyft and Uber aren't successful. Would you take a Carhoo car?
It's quite interesting. I have to say, I've just opened up on my App Store, and one of the trending searches is in fact Carhoo. So that's really interesting. I think I would, because of the 2 points. Well, one of the points you mentioned, the surge pricing. I've been victim of that with Uber myself, when a ride was twice the price, but I needed to take it, so I didn't have a choice. And the second was, on Uber, you can't choose the driver. And the reason I say that is because I was in London a week ago, as I'm sure you are many, many times, and I booked the Uber. And you know how on Uber you can see all the drivers? The one Uber chose was driving the away from me on a one-way street.
Ah.
So it took 4 minutes for him to go round all the... And you know what London traffic's like. Whereas if I could have picked one myself...
Yes.
I could have seen that it was at the bottom of the one-way street, thus going to get me.
Interesting. So it presumably chose the vehicle based on proximity as the crow flies rather than journey time.
Yes, and I think if I would have had I think generally it's okay, but in that one instance, if I could have chosen that one myself and said, actually, I want you, because I think you're better, then that's on me. If I was wrong, then that's on me, right? That's on nobody else.
Yes.
Whereas I was there swearing quietly to my phone because, these Ubers were going past and I couldn't do anything about it. So, Carhoo, hey, let's give it a go. Why the hell not?
Well, you'll be able to give it a go from yesterday, Monday the 9th of May. And as a company, they're driving towards launching in New York and Singapore by the end of this year, 2016, with the aim to be operational in 100 cities across the world by 2018. Now, before we move on to the final article, James, I just want to fill you in on Boaty McBoatFace, the latest part of the saga. Now, the ship has been named. So just to recap, Boaty McBoatFace got 4 times as many votes in this National Environment Research Council poll to name their latest research vessel than the second placed, which was the David Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough, very famous naturalist. But the boat has actually been named the RMS David Attenborough, which is, all fine and good, and no one would have cared. But MPs have asked whether the ministers MP Nicola Blackwood said that the whole episode had done for public engagement in science, the academic, and said it had attracted an extraordinary attention which could only be regarded as an incredible success. So actually the MPs are trying to spin this whole thing and saying actually this is really good for NERC to do this because it raised public awareness. I think it's had the opposite effect, James, which has just raised my awareness of how upset I am that they didn't call it Boaty McBoatFace.
I think there's two things here. Number one is if you ask the internet for anything, it's your own fault. Okay, because you're never going to like the answer that you get. Okay, no matter what it is. I mean, you just remember there was some rapper, I believe, in the US who said that partnering with Walmart, that whichever city got the most amount of votes, he would sing at that particular one. So, of course, the internet got together and he ended up singing at the most remote Walmart in Alaska.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love it.
So, I'm kind of pleased that Sense has overruled. I, in fact, did vote for Boaty McBoatFace, as I'm sure all of our listeners did. But actually saying, I'm not sure, knowing our listener, if he actually did. Listener, if you can tell me tomorrow if you, in fact, voted Boaty McBoatFace. Are we allowed to have direct connection?
No, we can't. It's an anonymous. It's no. Stop it.
Stop talking to the listener. Okay.
Stop talking to the listener like that.
Okay. Hey, look. I did hear though a couple of weeks ago when this saga was kind of in its height, that one of the names that was being proposed was a lady who I believe worked on it but passed away. And they wanted to name it after her. And I felt bad about voting for Boaty McBoatFace because I thought that's actually quite a good name for the boat. I think, the Attenborough one, it's a bit of a cop-out, really.
Oh, well, nobody will care. As long as they call it the RMS Boaty McBoatFace, the crew call it that, then I'll be absolutely fine with that. Let's move on. We're overrunning.
Yes, we are. Okay, so BT and, all of our British listener will know, runs pretty much our telecom system. So if you don't have Virgin for your home broadband or your business broadband, you've got BT in some form or another, whether it's Sky or TalkTalk or whoever. You've got BT, and the problem with BT is the aging copper network that's been around for 50 plus years that powers the internet. So even though companies are pushing the idea of fibre, it's really fibre to the end of your road, and it's still good old trusty copper cable that gets it to your house. So BT have finally announced, after much pressure from companies like Sky, that they're going to roll out fibre to the premises. That's a fibre cable straight to your home for 2 million homes. Is it too little too late, Robin?
I think they are just out for cash. There are a lot of grants that are available for this sort of thing, and there will be in an unsupported industry, the company would keep rolling out fibre until it wasn't making money anymore, and in an artificially supported industry, they'll keep going until the grants run out. So I suspect that what is going on here is a sort of combination of the two. There has to be a profit motive, and I think that actually I have copper to my house, and I get 70, 80 megabits, 10 milliseconds of latency. I get a really good service. Do you have copper yourself?
Yeah, I do, but I only get 30. I pay for 100, but I get 30.
Oh, that's because you're away from your
exactly
your cabinet,
and that's of course the problem with copper, right? The further you are away. I did once have copper in another house, and I got 90 plus. That was with Sky. Again, paid for 100, but got 90. The best I've ever had was Virgin. I paid for 120, and I got 120. which was great. Although
well, of course, they can guarantee that, can't they, with the coax? Yeah.
Yes, so Virgin still isn't fibre, but the thing, what this does though, I think the whole copper thing and BT, great, 2 million homes, that's fantastic. There's 60 million homes in the country, so well done.
No, there are 60 million people.
Okay,
I don't think there are 60 million.
Well, there's still a lot
homes,
more than 2. Okay, and
yeah,
it's a big number, right? And my brother was telling me, our previous guest, that he and his partner are thinking about getting Relish in London, which is the 4G broadband, which is being rolled out across the city. And the more BT start messing around, because I'll be honest, at home, and I live in Nottingham, I wouldn't say directly in the middle of the city, but sometimes my 4G connection is better than my home broadband.
Yeah, but you may have a higher top speed. You may be lacking in reliability because of contention.
Yes.
You're contended, of course, on a home broadband connection, but not perhaps to the same extent. Weather conditions, and especially latency as well, because of the number of nodes on the path between you and the service. And especially, like, for example, recording a show here with audio, that latency could produce slight delays in the way that we communicate, and we just sound like we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is very true. We definitely don't know what we're talking about, but we're very good at making it sound like we do. So,
great face.
I've just done a quick speed testorama. That's technical speak for speed test, and I'm getting 48 millisecond ping, which you're right is pretty shockingly awful. But I have got 12 meg up and 12 meg down on 4G at the moment, or fudge, as it's known just to me. And but so if I just do, because I'm sure all of our listener wants to know what my speed test is at the moment. So 12 meg up and down on 4G. I know you're on the edge of your seat. I can tell. It's fine. Good. Well done.
Yes.
Are you waiting?
I'm waiting for you to say something interesting.
No, you're going to be waiting a very long time. All right.
I've struggled to see what the story is here.
I don't know.
I'm waiting for you to ask me the question.
Look, the whole purpose of Techtasm is so I can do a speed test and tell the nation what my speed is.
Go on then, get the speed test.
25 down, 5 up. So today, right now, listener, 4G has got twice the upload speed as my home broadband. What the dickens is going on there? I tried not to swear there. I think I did pretty well.
Well, do you know, interestingly enough, there is something called 5G. Well, it's another thing with a G on it. Yep. But the newer versions of wireless protocols are nothing less than absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised in the future if they replaced fixed lines. I've also seen this technology from a US company called Starry. They were the people behind Aereo. They wanted to put a little aerial into a server in a data center somewhere, which would then transmit over the internet or your TV stations. That failed in the court. So the same people have moved on to this Starry network. It uses millimeter wave, very high frequency, 30, 40 gigahertz. To give you an incredibly large bandwidth line of sight, very low latency, very high bandwidth line of sight. So the idea is you stick this thing on your window and it gives you, so actually, there are wireless alternatives to broadband. And I say, bring on the technology, bring on the competition, give me some choice, especially in mega cities like London. You're going to have that choice. Less so where I live, but probably more than you.
Yes. Can I just say, when we started off this particular podcast this evening, we both agreed that we would do this one quickly and, we'd get through the stories. And this so far has been our longest ever episode.
38 minutes and counting. God, let's wrap this up. Thankfully, dear listener, that is it for this week. You can find us at facebook.com/Techtasm. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or Feedburner, or anywhere else that will take the word Techtasm. And you can contact us at feedback@techtasm.com. Record every Tuesday at 2100 BST GMT, so watch out for next week's episode. This is me, Sir Robin Yellow.
And me, Mr. Woodall.
Lord James Woodall, asking the question, is it real? Or is it just a Techtasm?